Oh, and we're live. So welcome to my whiskey den and the Midwest Whiskey Stream with Mike Lissick. We're happy to have him here. He's out of Kansas City. Um, he was gracious enough to send me, like I said, about 8 different samples. And right now we're going to go over 3 of them. A Wood Hat Spirits, which is out of Missouri, Tomstown, which is from his home city, Kansas City, Missouri, and then Single Cask Nation from MGP. So that's from Indiana. I don't care where it came from. We'll trace it back to where it came from and call that good for the Midwest stream. So thank you, Mike, for being on the show. We appreciate you coming on.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And before we start, like I mentioned earlier this week in one of my posts, there was something going on with the Craft Modernization and Tax Reform Act. The problem is that this bill needs to be actually put back into place by the end of the year. Otherwise, craft distillers will basically get a 400% increase in their taxes. So the tax rate right now is for the first 100,000 proofed gallons at about 50% are taxed at $2.70. Then the next rate jumps up to 13.24, but that level you're producing in the gap there is 22,130,000 gallons, and then it jumps up only like another quarter if you're going anything above that. So it really is kind of targeting the local producers, and most people, I think, are going to be upset if you're in the whiskey community, because though some of the big guys are producing interesting things, a lot of the small guys are doing the really cool stuff. So I just wanted to make sure everyone knew about that. And if you have any issues with it, you can go to spiritsunited.org and I'll take a look there. They'll actually show you how much your state produces and a bunch of other interesting facts, and how you can get involved and contact your personal senators. And I know you were kind of concerned about that too, Mike. So
Yeah,
it's kind of hindering.
Yeah, I mean, not just because we have a vested interest in the things that we love so much, but it's gonna kill jobs. It's gonna kill jobs not only at the small distilleries. It'll kill jobs where the distilleries are getting their barrels, their grain, and it's ridiculous.
Completely. Oh, and say hi to Benjamin, because he just jumped in the chat here. Thanks for joining us. I know you're going to be upset about it too, especially since your statement is accurate. You know, taxation is theft. I'll agree with that in this case, 100%. So appreciate you jumping on. I think the first one we're going to take a look at today, though, is Wood Hat Spirits out of New Florence, Missouri.
Yeah.
They're certified as a true craft distillery. Oh, that's the nice bottle. I enjoy it. I was going to say it has a really nice shape to it and a cool design. And since they are a true craft distillery, all that means is, certified by the American Distilling Institute. It means that they ferment, they distill, and they age all on site. Nothing. The only thing growing is the only thing that doesn't happen on site. The head distiller and owner of the company is Gary Heingardner, and I really like this guy. I know you.
Yeah, he's just watching the video of him and interviews with him. He's just one I'd say that's a cool little fart, man. I mean, he seems like he's got it figured out.
He's a really neat character, and he's the type of guy that I'm going to play 2 minutes of the video here coming up. And I think if you just see that much of it, go to the site. It's like an hour and a half thing that someone did a special on their distillery. It's done really well. It gets in depth, but just off of that, he's like a whiskey guy's whiskey. Like, you don't feel like he's bullshitting you about anything. You feel like he's kind of just telling you the truth, and he's passionate about it, and he kind of talks on a very personable level. So that's I think was like the most exciting thing. So like you said, I like this guy. Like, he got me excited. So I'm going to turn our mics off for a second. I'm going to flip us over. I don't have 2 screens, so it'll take 1 second to do that. But
and never had a mortgage. When you don't have a mortgage, there's a lot of stuff in this world you can do. You can travel the world, you can save money and buy a distillery. You can do a lot of stuff, and that just, to me, is what I needed to do. We import all our alcohol in Missouri. That didn't make sense to me, and we have all the resources here. It was a question that I took a long time to try to figure out. So I went from the East Coast to West Coast, went to 27 different distilleries, and I thought, why don't people make whiskey in Missouri? And I couldn't find a good reason, so I just decided I was going to do it. We're vertically integrated to a great extent. It gives us really good control over every aspect. There's a lot of ways you can screw up making whiskey. And to be in charge of all of those just helps you not screw up. If you're going to create your own taste, you have to have your own corn. It's kind of interesting because nobody's done anything for 3 generations, We've just been making whiskey out of cow feed and pig feed and ethanol plant corn. And nobody's looking after taste. So we have to go back to the way we did corn 60 years ago and start growing it, When you change the corn, you really change the whiskey.
All right, bring us back from that just real quick.
All right.
Yes. So just even his passion with that bit and being like, we couldn't grow anything here, and why the hell weren't we? So I'll do it. Plus his whole comment about, if you don't have a mortgage, you can do a lot of fun stuff. And I was like, you know what? You're right, sir. That probably is accurate. So if you get a chance, hop over to his website. Like I said, the thing's almost an hour long yet, and it's a really nice in-depth look at it. And him and his whole practice. I wish more people would do something like that about different distilleries, because I don't know, it was very enlightening. You don't always get that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it seems to be more of not the type of, well, I just want to make whiskey. It's more, I want to make stuff that's good, different, unique, and also the little bit of the frugality of, there's no reason for me to throw a bunch of money at this when we can do it this way.
Exactly.
It's I like it. I do like the whiskey.
All right. So I poured myself a glass. Oh, you're already there. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
The one something I found neat was that he keeps the grain whole on this all the way through to try to get a little bit more of a robust flavor. So it's not broken down or anything like that. And the thing that he uses that I think is outstanding and almost everyone should use has to do with the barrels. Yeah. He uses air-dried barrels that are dried for 3 years outside, so the rain will get through them and it kind of pulls a lot of the tannins out, where some people might only be waiting 2 months or a year, or they're kiln dried, and that's where I think you get a lot of those green notes from places. Not all the time, but I think that affects it quite a bit. So a couple other small things about this. It's either aged for 2 years in a 15-gallon barrel or for 4 years in a 53-gallon barrel, and it's blue corn and a wheated kind of mash for it. I couldn't find the actual stats. There's nothing wrong with hiding that, because they did seem pretty unique. Hey, Ed, thanks for popping in. We were just getting to tasting the first one, the Wood Hat Bourbon Rubenesque. It's 50% ABV. Either way, it comes out of the barrel. So I'll let you talk about what you're smelling first, Mike, because you beat me there. I'm dominating it. So
my notes are that I had on it. They were from, I don't know, when I was about a quarter into the bottle, and I'm obviously a little bit more into the bottle, and it has actually opened up quite a bit more. But it's like cooked caramelized nuts on the nose.
I was gonna say that I get a little bit of almost chocolate.
I think some of that's the oak, because he uses chinkapin oak, which is nuttier, and it doesn't have the tannins, the heavier tannins as red oak, and smaller barrels. But it's cooked nuts. It's caramelized walnuts and pecans is what I get.
I'm not gonna say Christmas, but that's the only time we used to ever like bake nuts in an oven or anything like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're definitely getting that in there. He uses another wood too. He just started playing around with pecan wood.
Yeah.
With some of the other things. So he's playing in realms where other people are just playing with mash bills. He's like, let's play with this different wood. Let's play with this. And I don't know. Like I said, I'd take a trip there if I ever go down to see Mike. I want to see that. I want to go see them. So
yeah, it's about 2/3 of the way between here and St. Louis, so it's not too bad of a trip.
Right. I don't want to say like I'm getting like almost like a mixed with the nuts, like a little bit of a dark fruit note. That could just be the richness of it, though. But oh wow. I didn't try this beforehand because I wanted to be surprised with what was going on, and wow, that is really, really tasty.
Yeah.
I was supposed to put that up before I got too excited about talking about it and forgot to put something up. But
it's pretty full. I mean, for what it, I mean, I didn't have high expectations on it, but I knew, from when I'd seen the video on the guy, I'm like, well, come on, this has got to be, it's got to be interesting at least. But it is. It's got a pretty full mouthfeel to it. Yeah,
and none of the green note whatsoever. No. I don't even taste it at all. That is okay. Hold on, I gotta go back and taste. If you have taste notes, go ahead. I might need 2 drinks to kind of grab a hold of it because there was a lot going on.
Just like the nose, I get the cooked nuts with butter and a little bit of cinnamon, and it reminds me of a dish that I'm Croatian, and my grandma make this dish called povatica, which is basically you cook nuts and then you put them in a bread, and then you heat it up and you'll put some butter on it afterwards. And this just reminds me of her povatica.
Oh, yeah, like you said, there's like a hint of cinnamon and a little bit of spice. It pops at the beginning and a little bit at the end. It's not heavy, but yeah, like buttered cooked nuts.
Yeah.
And I'm getting like still a little bit of I don't want to say like a chocolate flavor, but a little bit. But maybe that could, I don't know. I have no problem drinking more to find out.
Somebody's got to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like it's all like the front 2/3 is all like bunch of flavor and punch. And then on the bottom end, I don't want to say it goes away, but it only sticking to like the sides of my tongue.
Yeah.
And the rest of it still feels pretty clean.
Yeah.
So, this is really nice. So yeah, I'm willing to go try his other like 8 expressions he has.
And it's like only like 3 years old at the most, maybe 2 years old. Even in a small barrel, it's still, like you said, you don't get the green, you don't get any of the things that you would expect. It's
none of the scary things.
Yeah.
It was like 2 and a 15 or 4 and a 53, but it wasn't only until recently that he started he was doing the 53 gallon barrels. A lot of times at the first, I think originally it was like 16 months or something. So then it was pushed up to 2 years, and he lives up to what I was talking about him. This is well worth trying to find one, and I would say some of the other stuff because he was trying a bunch of different corns and stuff, and yeah, I'm totally excited about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting just a titch of like bitter chocolate after the nuts, but just like lightly sliding through there.
Yeah, I can see that.
Oh, that is yes. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
The rest, I didn't even have too much of this one. We're definitely gonna play with that again.
We got a long ways to go.
Yeah, I do. Well, that's why I didn't want to touch them till now. I thought that might have been a little scary. Yeah, I'm gonna finish this one. And for people watching, I'm gonna break up a little bit of the reviews we're doing here later on to set them into their own 10-15 minute review, so people can look at each one, not have to watch the whole stream if you don't want to. I would, but I mean, that way people can find them a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
And I think the next one, if we want to switch over to the single cask nation one.
Oh yeah.
That one's in an MGP Indiana light whiskey. Yeah. That's aged 12 years, and it is 54.1% alcohol on this one. And I know you know a little bit more about them than I do. Even last night when we were talking about it, Mike, you had way more information, so I'm going to let you roll on these guys.
Okay, so Single Cask Nation, they're a pretty cool couple of guys. They used to have a festival. It actually recently went on hiatus, as I understand it. That was called they owned the Jewish whiskey company, and they put on this festival in New York, Chicago, and Seattle called the Whiskey Jubilee. And it would have they started coming out with their whiskeys that were festival only. It served kosher food and everything, and some of but they pick single casks to go and have at their festivals. Well, then they would bottle those, and you could only get them at the festival. Well, then they started Single Cask Nation, and there's a retail wing of it that on their website you can find it. But I know the closest one to me is Illinois. There's some in Denver, New York, and stuff. And it has its own labeling for Single Cask Nation, same name. But then the online version has its own labeling. And they don't do as many releases online, but everything is a single cask. And they've done a couple of things with light whiskey. One of the two guys, so one of them is a American Jewish guy. The other one is a Scotsman married to a Jewish lady. And one of them really likes the light whiskey more than the other one does. But they they go into Westland, Lefroy, Wild Turkey, Ben Nevis, Klein Leash, and pick out these casks. And they've had, a 2-year-old Westland that, but they're picking specific characteristics of this cask. And it's, by all accounts, amazing. Or even a 5-year-old Lefroy. But releasing it at cask strength, 5 years old. And there's anything that I've had of theirs has been great. This light whiskey came up, and it's like I said, it's 12-year-old light whiskey, which was bourbon and Scotch were not popular, so they came up with the light whiskey classification for the people that like vodka. And it's grain whiskey. It's American grain whiskey, and most of the time it's made to be put into blends of stuff. But on its own, it can be pretty good. As you said, this is their bottle from it. And the other thing too is they are all about transparency. They tell you everything about where they're getting all their stuff. They don't mess around at all. They're transparency gods as far as I'm concerned. You can join Single Cask Nation for free, just through their website. They do have their own Facebook group that you throw some questions and get on there. And it's they're pretty cool. But yeah, the whiskeys, they speak for themselves pretty easily.
And just like you were saying, they seem to go to places that are unique, like just going to Westland and even thinking about a 2-year-old. But a lot of Westland I've had has been pretty interesting. Oh, hey, Arthur, thanks for stopping in. Appreciate that. How are you doing this evening, everyone in the chat? Oh, and what the hell are you guys drinking? I didn't set the alarm. I didn't set it, so I think I think we're past the 5 minutes. I can get away with whatever I want to say now. But just when you were, yeah, we're not going to rattle it off like on Dungeons and Drams when the alarm goes off. We'll hold off on that one. But just the fact that what did you say they called their first festival?
Whiskey Jubilee.
That you could have fun with yourself. I mean, that in itself is kind of neat. I like people that can play with it and not feel, I don't know, too proper all the time,
Yeah.
even though it is really neat and stuff. But I'm like, I like people that can have a little fun even with themselves. That's a cool name. Like
Yeah.
but like you were saying, just going to the right places and trying a 3 or a 5 or different ones to see how they kind of land out at. Because the most interesting independent bottle I heard of is when Brad LeClaire had like a 3-year-old Talisker, and he was getting all sorts of crazy banana bread on it. And I was like, okay, that sounds incredibly cool because I like banana bread. I'm like, but who would have thought like in 3 years that you would have like a salty banana bread thing going on?
Right.
So,
And that's why I like about independent bottlers, because you get, instead of the if you like Lefroy, you know what you expect. If you're a person that I buy Lefroy 10 all the time. I know what it's going to taste like. This is great, but that's been blended to get to that profile. And these guys go in and they're like, that's great, but this one cask is really unique and weird, and we're not doing anything to it. This is cool. And they also had a Glen Talkers, which we would never see really on the show.
Exactly.
Because it gets thrown into Chivas and other stuff, but you could go buy them as Glen Talkers, or there's one other independent bottler that gets it over in Europe that we'll never see.
That's what I mean. You're rarely ever going to see some of the things that some of these guys go get.
Yeah.
So that's another thing where if it isn't an off one, you're like, well, I'm never going to get to touch that. Like no one really ever gets to touch it. So it's nice to see what's going into some of the blends when you hit that, even though it is like a special cask, basically.
Right.
Oh, and Arthur, there's nothing wrong with a little oogie this evening. That's always tasty. That's always tasty. And just straight Tawny Port, Benjamin, after the Macallan 12. I can see you doing that. You trying to compare the sherries to the Macallan that you had in a little bit with that. That's always neat. Ooh.
Yeah.
You can tell there's a little bit of rye spice in it on the nose.
Yeah, this is also let's see what it's finished. So it's 12-year-old light whiskey that was in a bourbon, a rye, and an IPA cask.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Now I have more excitement with what it is. Usually
the breakdown is let's see, I got it on a computer. 8 years in first fill bourbon, and then 4 years in then different bourbons, X ryes, and IPAs.
See, and that's neat. And if for those of you who are not watching or watching later, because I think pretty much everyone in the chat knows what light whiskey is, they kind of distill a little bit higher and they pull a little bit more flavor out of it. Like you were saying, they were gearing towards people who liked vodka a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, but then after so they did that, and then they put it in a bunch of different barrels to pull flavor back into it.
Yeah.
So I like that. So
yeah.
But on the nose, you can tell like that probably it was distilled, that it is a light whiskey, because it's nowhere near as robust as the Wood had on the nose.
No, it's not. And that's what's weird. And it's a higher ABV, and it's not in your face as much as that one.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
It's a lot sweeter on the nose than what
Mm-hmm. You can tell it's definitely more of a grain when you drink it.
Mm-hmm.
It is. You get a sweeter note. Wow. Halfway through is when I think all the excitement happens.
Yeah.
Because that's where you can tell it was in a bourbon barrel. But when you're seeing like and it sticks around. I got to go back to this one too. Yeah. These are two excellent ones so far, just because of the flavors on the last one and this one. Though they're married together really well.
Yeah.
It's not like there's spiky punches going in any direction. This is really nice too.
The flavor reminds me of those. Have you seen those? It's a chocolate sphere that's like an orange, and you smash it, and it's got like orange to it. So you got like the chocolate and then the orange flavoring to it.
As soon as you said that, I am getting like that orange flavor, like on the second one, like right as you said it, and I was swallowing, it was like boom, orange.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, that's neat. I dig that quite a bit. Hold on
Yeah.
here. Mm. I want to say a titch of lemon, but I've been getting lemon on a lot of stuff lately. So that's, I don't know. Sometimes when you go in a row, you just kind of keep pulling a flavor, but the orange is definitely there. And you're right. Is it a Kinder Egg?
I don't know what that's called.
I know those are one that have like little toys on the inside though, so I could be wrong about which one, but I just remember it was like, don't give those to kids. I'm like, well, it is candy. You know, they're like, oh, it's got this little tiny robot that basically falls apart into little pieces.
One of the things about the Single Cask Nation is their notes. If you get on their site and look at their tasting notes for their whiskeys, it reads like a J. Peterman catalog.
Oh.
And they're so in depth and thick, but you read it and you're like, oh, bullshit. but you keep going. You're like, oh, okay. But I still like, if I read their notes while drinking something of theirs, it reminds me of, Seinfeld when Elaine's trying to come up with one, and all of a sudden she's like, yes, she comes up with it.
Yeah, and that, like, again, that's someone, I don't want to say having fun with what you're doing. And you're like, okay, I could say this or this, but yeah, it's like on a rainy day and wherever you can smell, smell whatever coming off the ground. And
yeah. And they do all of their American whiskey bottlings. They had the cool glass stoppers, but you can't pull them straight up. You got to pop them, and they're nice and heavy.
Those are keepers, because if you ever lose one of yours, it's like the greatest replacement ever.
It's also kind of a good theft deterrent, because if you had a friend that comes over like I have and they're trying to pull it off and they can't get to come off until they flip it, they can't steal any of your whiskey.
You can catch them kind of cheating, trying to steal your. Hey, what are you doing over there?
Yeah, that is good stuff.
That is. And Arthur, in underground aged whiskey, I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued about where you're getting this underground whiskey. Any underground whiskey sounds exciting, but yeah. And what are you mixing it with? Oh, you went down to Treaty Oak. Oh, Treaty Oak I haven't been there, but I've heard good things from people who have been down there and seen it. But I don't know. Underground whiskey sounds like something I should be doing, doesn't it? Like you have your own quiet still in the basement, and the little one, and you're not supposed to. But whoever your friend is that has it, I'd like to know if it's good or not. But no, it is a little bit of grainy. I can see how maybe at a lower proof you would easily want to kind of mix this with something else. But just the way it is like this, you only get that grain thing for just like a second, and then it kind of fades away real quick. That was like right at the front, and then all of a sudden, boom, flavors overrun it.
Yeah, it doesn't drink as 54% either.
Yeah, I was gonna say you get those flavors and then it kind of disappears real quick afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there are some oils and tannins. Oh, that's right. I should be quiet about underground. You can just message me quietly. You're right. We shouldn't mention underground whiskey and who made it on the actual live stream. You can hit me directly up, because that sounds exciting. And if we ever get a bottle, I share really well. No, but
you're a good sharer and a generous lover.
You got to talk to other people about that. I mean, I want to say yes, but I don't like to toot my own horn. So you gotta go find people to say that. Yeah, and there's just like a little bump where you get like that orange, and it goes up a bit, and then it kind of comes back down.
Yeah.
This is why all of a sudden the trip to Illinois is a little more exciting now.
Yeah.
Because if they have them there, and like Mike said, you can sign up to be a part of Single Cask Nation online. I would go do it. That's one of the lists for tomorrow for me because it's. I think usually, I mean, there's a couple of places in the U.S., but usually you think independent bottlers, and you think, Europe is where they have a whole bunch of them, and they'll go trying different stuff. And there's only like a couple in the U.S. that I know of, but I mean, we can get stuff, but a lot of times it is stuff from over in Europe that are doing it. I don't know, and I'm always concerned now that extra 25%, if it really does get here. It hasn't seemed to hit in a lot of the places I've gone to yet on scotches, but
December 1st is what I heard.
Oh, like I thought it went into effect already or something, and I was like, well, maybe all the stuff is still here, and that wasn't taxed yet. But like the next time it ships in, I'm fucked.
There's a it's a place in the Twin Cities. Well, I guess on Minneapolis side called Ace Spirits. They ship around, but you can sample a lot of their stuff in the store. But they sent a notice to me that they have they're doing a Scotch sale before the tariffs, and their prices are pretty good anyway. But they knock some prices down on stuff pretty heavy. That I'm looking at. It's a 6.5 hour drive, which I've done more than once up there. It's like, okay, what would I need to do to justify driving up there? And
like I said, maybe there's like I always when I go travel some places, maybe there's a concert there that I want to see. So justification in there. Totally like that. Oh, and Brad Leclerc is right. Leclerc, sorry about that. First rule of Flight Club is don't talk about what's in the flights. Yeah, that's true. You have me there. I should have never done that. I broke rule 1 on the second whiskey. I'm not supposed to break that till whiskey 5.
I get like a really weird gin aftertaste too.
Yeah, it gets a little herbally for a second.
Yeah.
I'm going to say I'd like the Wood Hat one better, but this is definitely an interesting choice, especially for a 12-year-old. That was, when I saw that, I made them sit on it for that long, because I guess I don't know how long MGP would really sit on stuff. I always feel like maybe they get to 4 or 5, and everyone wants to get something at that point and do something with it right away. Yeah. I'm sure they were sitting on 12s, but when I was looking at Lou Price. Oh, go ahead.
They're doing a lot of stuff we don't even know about. I mean, they make good whiskey. They really do.
Well, and that's doing. People who wanted to like shit on them and stuff. I mean, it was I get it, but at like the same time, once you find out like, oh, this like these 10, 12 other whiskeys I've had, they all come from there.
Right.
And you're like, oh, well, then I guess I kind of have to shut up about it.
Yeah.
It was just a label that was getting people kind of upset. And they do a decent job with what they're doing. And if they didn't, you probably wouldn't have, I'm going to say maybe a quarter of the craft distillers, because that's what you're going to do the first 2 to 4 years while you're making your own stuff, is probably sell someone else's, or learn to blend it on your own. So I don't know. I don't hate them anywhere near as much as a lot of people do, but
nah, it's more about the bottler that's not letting you know that it came from there, and even some of the big distillers that go to them because they know rye better than just about anybody else. So like, well, let's see, I could put this messy grain into my system and have to do this, or
I can just walk over here and give you some money and it can show up on Thursday.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, that one was really nice. I really like that one quite a bit.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Are you done with that one?
Oh yeah, I actually poured a second one.
Oh, well, hey, I'll pour a little sip till you're done with that one.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm done.
Oh, you're done. Okay. Hey, well then never mind. I'll tighten that one back up real quick. That one's back on the shelf. The next one is Tom's Town Double Oaked Bourbon. It's 45% APV. This one is from Kansas City, like I said, your current home city.
Yeah.
And the story, I should say the story on this. Oh, did you show the bottle?
Yeah.
Oh, I dig it because it looks like a 1920s bottle, and that's what they were going for, kind of the whole Great Gatsby feel.
Yeah.
With it, and I'm like, not everyone spends a lot of money on a unique bottle, and I'll be honest, sometimes that will catch my eye, and I might just buy it because of the bottle shape.
Yes.
I bought a border bourbon from Wisconsin because it had like a wax dip top, and it had like a little leather piece on it and stuff, and I'm like, sold. And I'm like, I don't know anything about it at the time, but I'm like, you got me with marketing. But this and Woodhead Spirits, Tomstown and Woodhead Spirits, both have fantastic websites. Just really well done. And Tomstown gives you a background of how they came to knowing or pick out the name, basically. I'm going to go through it, maybe like 2-3 minutes of it, just because it's really named after Tom Pendergrass, who started a wholesale liquor in 1919. Then we all know 1920, the evil prohibition started. He wasn't happy with it and still wanted to basically be, a distributor and a producer. So in 1921, Kansas City starts to get known as Tom's Town already because he doesn't care about the laws, and he wants to basically put into effect, we're the city known as the Paris of the Plains. You come here where you can drink, you can gamble, you can go to jazz clubs, you can hang out and have a good time. So he even in around 1921, I think it was 1923, he touches a lot of people since he kind of starts a political machine to kind of keep this rolling in a direction. He picks Harry S. Truman, who was then a haberdasher, to run for the first administrative court post for the county. And then later he helps Truman become a U.S. senator. So he start touching presidents and kind of launching their careers. That's exciting. Now, I wanted to think of him as kind of like Kansas City's Al Capone.
Yeah.
It's kind of the way I looked at him, because in 1925, he starts to shape the city government so that the mayor's office has like no control.
Yeah.
Like the city manager has all the control, and then he runs his own man as the city manager to take it. So by that time, like I said, Kansas City was known as the Paris of the Plains, and his direct quote for like why they would do this is because the people are thirsty. Yeah. And I just really like that. I thought that was neat. So by the time 1932 rolls around, he's in control of the police department, and he's starting to replace the other competition, and elbowing them out and starting like the full political machine at that point. Then by 1935, there's more clubs in Kansas City that serve booze and people having a good time per capita than any other place in the world at that point. There's over 300 different jazz clubs, bars, taverns, whatever, all going on at that point. And then, sadly, I don't want to say sadly because I'm sure, people got hurt in the process, but it just was he's ballsy as hell. That's all. And sometimes I like to give credit to people who are ballsy as hell throughout history. Maurice Milligan was the U.S. attorney, and he kind of forces Tom to plead tax evasion. Once again, like Al Capone, if we can't get you for what you really did wrong, you made way too much money for only having like 5 nightclubs. You just don't make that much money, and poor dude goes to jail for like 18 months, and things kind of fall apart on the political machine. So then, fast forward, 2015, Steve, and I'm going to say his name wrong, Reaver, and David Epstein. I don't think he's any relation to the other Epstein, so we're not going to make anything there. Founded Tom's Town. Steve was the great uncle of the Milligan, the attorney that put Pendergrass in jail. And David's great grandfather, Herman, was a rival bootlegger who got elbowed out of the business by Tom. So I just thought it was neat that these two guys that both have heritage, like kind of their own and could name it their own thing, were like, no, he was the king at that point, and we're going to run with that because we're still in Kansas City. So just the history with that, and if you go online, it's way more in depth. But I don't know. I just love a story like that.
Yeah, he was. I mean, definitely corrupt as hell, but he got shit done.
Yeah.
I mean, and
he got shit done. He's like, no, we're gonna have booze here, and we're gonna have a fun. It's basically he didn't want to stop selling booze and get a different job.
Yeah.
It was the whole thing. Like, no, I like doing this.
His big thing was he had a concrete company, and he just happened to get all the contracts, for all the work, and it expanded up. I think it got up into Omaha too, and he just he ran everything. But once he got sent away, then people realized, oh, we don't have to listen to this guy, and now he doesn't have any power, but he had everything. I mean, he had, like you said, he had the police department, he had all these people in his pocket. I will say from native Kansas City, but from the accounts that I've understood is that Harry Truman wasn't corrupt under his, in his pocket. But he was always grateful for the fact that Pendergast, brought him up, but he wasn't one of his puppets. And which I think that's, if it's true, it's cool. If it's not, whatever, it's another political story, but yeah, dude was corrupt, lived in a big mansion. He ran the city out of a small office downtown. And I mean, it was like 2 blocks away from where like his club was too. It was like, it's just over here. I can walk over there and see what's going on. And the distillery is just down the road or down the street from where his office was, where he ran all of his stuff.
Well, and now that you mentioned the whole concrete company, that makes me a little fearful of who's buried in the roads.
So you know what?
People go away that way a lot.
There was a big deal about that. There's a creek that's really runoff that runs through the plaza area in Kansas City, and the legend was because he of course got the bid to concrete it back in the day, was that the people that opposed him were underneath it. But in the I think it was the late 80s, they had redone a lot of that creek, and they're like, there are no bodies.
Thought it was going to be like, oh God, who is that? I can't remember who the one guy was back in the day, but he like, basically I thought they might go out there and like do like the little sonic charge thing where they do like the little mini dynamite, like poof, and you can see what's down below it, and they're like, oh shit. Yeah, there's like 40 people in this road, and we don't even really want to dig it up. We're just going to build a highway over here and go around this. But yeah, so the double oaked bourbon is aged 2 years. It's 45% alcohol by volume. First, it's aged in white American oak, and then aged again in a combination of French and American oak staves. 62% corn, 36 rye, 2% malted barley. Like I already mentioned, I dig the bottle on its own. Like, they played towards a certain time frame, and I think they really fell into it and really did a good job with that. Yeah,
I agree.
It's a little bit lighter than I thought, but 62% corn. I can see that.
It's real grassy.
Yep. You're right. There's a little bit of green note, but you're like grassy note, not like green barrel note, like definitely like, and not hay, and like, but like a green grass.
And I get a weird perfume that I put in my notes. It kind of reminds me of like a kind of an old lady perfume, but not that rank stuff that they use, because their smelling senses are gone. It's just like that really weird, faint, cheap perfume.
Yeah.
I don't mean that in a bad way.
No, I get that, but that other perfume that you were mentioning, the old lady like layered on, that used to make me sick. Like if I was shopping with my mom and some old lady was wearing that like heavy stuff, I was allowed to like leave the store and go to the arcade. I just started getting sick. She said, "You can go."
And now you look for that in your whiskeys.
Oh God, no. God, no. I'd still be the same way. I'd put it down and be like, "This is yours, and I'm gonna go get a different bottle. I'll be back." But no, yeah, I get you. Like it is like a perfumey, like not quite herbally, but
No, it's like a stale perfume.
yeah, and I can't like pick a flower out. I'm not adept at flowers, but I can't. But it does definitely like a light perfume to it, and it's not heavy. Like it's the nose is kind of similar more to the single cask Nation, but
Yeah.
different. But it's still but light like that.
Yeah. And yeah, like I told you, when this came out, it's I really wanted to hate it just because I thought this is just one of those things where you're like, okay, come on. You're putting this thing out and you're gonna have a half-ass whiskey and it's it's gonna be okay, but it's I think going into it very negative it helped because it's like, you know what? It's pleasant. It's very pleasant.
And we talked about that with me where sometimes if something's so overhyped, I almost expect too much out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I go in and it could still be good, and I'm like, this sucks. Like for the first like 2 times I try it, I'll be like, I don't know what everyone else was seeing, and it could have been fine or a good whiskey, but I was like, everyone had me thinking, oh, what's up here? I'm gonna praise it. I'm gonna go get 3 more bottles, share it with everybody.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's almost, I like stuff if it's under the radar more before it pops up like that.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm sorry, Ben. I didn't mean to force you to kind of drink your last drink to hold back the whole restraint of bringing that up. I didn't mean to upset you. Oh, yeah. This is on the nose. This is actually really pleasant. It almost reminds me more of like a scotch a little bit, like with that perfume note.
Yeah. It's like on the
sweet corn note.
on the Leclerc scale, it's nice.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell it's definitely more corn dominant. You get a little more heavier sweet note in it. The rye kicks in there.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I get too much of the malted barley, but it's only 2%. So that's not a lot in there.
No, it's just a little nutty and then just a little spice. And
yeah,
the spice stays a little bit.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting now after it left a bit. It's more the rye spice sticking around than maybe a little bit of barrel note, but it's more rye spice because it's on the top of my tongue and I'm not getting it oily on the sides or down my throat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you said, I'm like, it's even on the taste, it's a nice whiskey. And I'd be okay with drinking this. It could be around for an everyday drinker, but it's not something that being on the vastity of saying that I'm going from the West, I'm not going to say it's a must have, but it's definitely worth trying because it's not bad and it has some really nice notes to it.
It is, yeah. I'd like to try it in a Manhattan. That's one of the things I do want to do. And I have been making pre-mixing Manhattans and then sticking them in the fridge, which if you haven't done that, it's so good. It marries and chills and everything. But pouring a Manhattan out of this bottle, I think it'll look pretty cool.
And like I said, it fits the time period. You're like,
it completely fits, yeah.
Like it feels like a first Bond movie type thing. You're like, yeah, this fits it very, very well.
First Bond movie, right before he smacks a woman, which
well, that too, 20s, that weird stuff was okay. I'm not saying it's okay now, but
it's not okay. Some of it's hard to look at. It's like, oh,
it's like, and you guys still like, even everyone on the set thought we should let's keep that in the set. You're like, no, tell me there was someone in the background going, Doug, we should edit that out. Take that out of the movie.
Nah, they're just like, you know what? You should hit her again. Bad choice.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
it hangs
gets
around
bright.
pretty good.
There's a little citrus from like halfway through.
Yeah.
When you get the rye spice, like that pops up and then it drops into the rye. Yeah, this is like I can see what you said. Like, yeah, this was surprising when you're like, I almost want to be frustrated with it, and you're like, oh, no, you guys did a decent job. You did a nice job with this.
Yeah, I mean, cheers to them. I was expecting a shitstorm. I really was. It's like this is gonna suck. And first time I tried it, we were at an event, and it was like, oh, I'm gonna go get a whiskey, and we stood in line forever to the one bar that we could go, and they're like, well, we have Crown and we have Tomstown, and it was like, really, and like, fine, I'll try the Tomstown, and like, this is not bad. It wasn't bad at all. And went back again, and so yeah, definitely prompted the bottle. It's like, all right, I was pleasantly surprised.
You got me on that one.
Yeah.
And this one, they do have some other releases. I think this one just came out earlier this year, from what I did, but I could be inaccurate. But I think came out earlier this year. But yeah, that was really nice. Oh, and let's see here. Benjamin says he's going to be getting one shipped to him here in a little bit.
Nice.
That's nice. I was going to say, this one's good. I'd assume a couple of the other ones that they have are probably going to be along the same line. You're not usually when you find a distiller, it's really you find one thing that was great and the rest of it's not. I was telling Mike about one that happened yesterday with where this one company, I'm not going to name them now, but their batch 13 was magnificent, like gold medal winner, combination of chocolate, nut, some rye spice, and it was bold and it was beautiful. So between my friends who hang out on Friday night, I had bought like 4 bottles. My friend Rick had bought 5 or 6. Grant bought 2. So it was like, whoa, we're having this again this Friday. We're at least, this is the base. Everyone's happy with it. And then by the time we got to the next 2 expressions, by the time they got to like 15, it was like unrecognizable. I don't know what happened, but it felt like going to talk to the distiller and being like, I know everyone keeps notes on what they're doing. Go back to that. Like, whatever happened, do your absolute very best to try to mimic batch 13. And how you didn't put that out to be like, we're going to send this out to get, to the medal, to try to get medaled or tasted by professionals in the competition, I don't know. But how they lost what that was, I almost wanted to think it was a barrel thing, because there was so much more green and other stuff in it that maybe it was just a barrel that they had gotten or aged that version in that was glorious. And maybe they kept going back to the same people, and it hasn't lived up. And yes, it's a letdown, but that's very rare. It's very rare that happens, that someone made something fantastic and everything else is little. But I should take that back. I've had a couple of their ryes since then, and their ryes have been very good. But we were talking about what is usually good in Wisconsin. Our ryes, because they age a little bit better and faster than some other stuff. So bourbons, you really almost have to sit on, I'd say 4 or 5 years here at least, before you start getting a really nice, presentable profile. Some of the 2 years are a little bit iffy, and you can tell that either it's a weak barrel or that the notes just haven't had time to get taken over by a good barrel.
Yeah.
So a little bit iffy on that. But this, I'm voting wise, I'm going to put Woodhead at the top tonight.
Yeah.
And once I'm done with this, I'm going to go right back to that before we finish off the evening, because that was by far and away the most robust whiskey going on this evening.
Yeah. It had just a really nice mouthfeel, and just the way it just blossomed out. Like, this is good. I like this. I'm having a good time. just sipping this thing right here.
Yeah, so I just finished that one. Yeah, you can. I think it's the corn. I don't want to say it's too much corn in here, but you do get that sweet, kind of corny taste in this one. A little. I don't know. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
The only downfall would be that. But like I like a little bit more robust. Let's find the right glass I started on here. That's
It's
this
got
one.
Thompstown too. Actually, it has a respectable 45% ABV.
Yeah. None of the ones you sent me were weak.
But oddly, the lowest proof of the three that we've had tonight.
That's exactly right.
But just a nice, pleasant experience.
Yeah, and like you said, I can see how if you were a bartender, you'd be like, I can mix stuff with this.
Yeah,
I'd be interested to just see that. Old fashions are huge in Wisconsin now, typically with brandy, but obviously I'm whiskey guy, so I'm a whiskey old fashioned. But I could see that working in there. Now everyone loves to push rye in some of them lately if you are doing a whiskey, but I still like a bourbon in it, just because sometimes in some ryes you get that anise flavor, and I am not the biggest fan of that. That like black licorice flavor that turns me off to a lot of them. There's one or two that have it in it, and I find it, and I'm okay. But usually that's because it peaks for a second and then disappears behind things. So it's like, oh, it was there, it's gone. I'm like, okay, good, it's gone. What's the rest of it going on around it?
Yeah.
So, I just went back to the wood hat and the nose alone, like molasses, wood nuts. Yeah, buttered nuts that have been like baked.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Single Cask Nation and Tomstown, but this is the winner tonight. I mean, I'm gonna have Mike back on because he sent me a couple of Driftless Glens, and I'm gonna send him a couple. So we'll be doing a stream here probably again in a couple weeks, trying a couple other ones from the Midwest. But this is really good. So yeah, if I make it down to Kansas City, there's definitely be a trip there. Plus, if I'm not right, Kansas City has a few other distilleries in the area. I'd want to say maybe 5, 6, 8 of them, kind of not too far away from Kansas City. So it is a nice home base to jump off from.
Yeah, and I've had from within 20 miles of me, I've had 4 different distilleries. And then some other ones are a little further out, but still not too bad. And it's there's some good stuff going on down here.
Yeah, and that's well worth it. So yeah, that doesn't disappoint on the flavor.
No. I would say with the Single Cask Nation, to be fair, putting the light whiskey up against
it's not
is not really fair.
It's not. But for what that was really good.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, you kind of stripped some of the flavors out going with light whiskey. Because we had one from La Crosse that just produced a light whiskey, and it's almost more of a ginny flavor. Like where we're seeing get some herbal stuff in there, you were getting almost more of that out of it than that. But for a light whiskey and for what they picked it at in 12 years, quality. I would never complain about that. But this is just, the mouthfeel and the flavors are more robust.
Yeah.
And kind of up in your face. And I really dig that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I do too.
And so before we leave here this evening and let everyone go, couple notes upcoming. Like I said, we're going to have Mike on again. I enjoyed this. Thank you very much for being on and for the samples. Those were wonderful. And for anyone else out there that we get samples, even if it's not from the Midwest, we'll bring you on. We'll do a couple tastes. We'll highlight. I'm always going to be happy with something that's good, and that person, that distillery should get some love. I mean, that's kind of why I do what I do, is because the Midwest gets a couple reviews here or there, but you don't really get the love you're supposed to get if you're from the Midwest, because Kentucky, Texas, and even Westland, I don't think, because they're just hidden out there, gets enough like rep for what they're producing. Their Garyana is killer. If you get a bottle of that, totally worth having. So it's just kind of showcase a little prominence that people should have it. And if we stumble upon something bad, I guess we'll have to be honest about it. But that happens. So coming up this week later on, Wednesday night, I'm going to be on Cask Strength, and we're going to be finishing off the very first sample send out. It's hard to get stuff to everyone in Canada, and now it's to everyone from Cask Strength. So we're going to have, I'm going to go on their channel at 7. We're going to review Jay Rigers, also from Kansas City. They offered me a job, and it was the hardest thing to turn down for 2 days. Absolutely hardest. Douglas and Todd, which is a Minnesota whiskey. They use wood that is from Minnesota. And when we talked to Mitch Weddle, that made a lot more sense because I didn't know why that would be exciting. Northern oaks have a much tighter ring pattern, so it doesn't, you don't get into it as much as the other ones. So you get a different wood flavor just because of the cell structure of the wood. And I'm like, wow, who really, does it make a big difference between Southern and Northern? He's like, it totally makes a big difference. So that was neat. Then we had our buddy over at Rock Gut Review, Ed, one of his more favorite Wisconsin one is Driftless Glen's Young Rye. It's not one that they make anymore, but in my opinion, and I'd probably have to lean towards his, it's one of the better ryes coming out. It was one of the better ryes coming out of Wisconsin. It just had a little more punch and a little bit more to it, but they proofed that when they said, looking at it now, 61.3%. And most stuff they're doing now is 50-ish, 51. So just, and I was impressed because that was like 14, 16 months old most of the time. So it wasn't even 2 years old, but it had so much character in it. And the other one was just Yahara Bay's whiskey. That one's by Madison. We talked about if you show up, that's definitely a place we can stop at because it's right there in Madison. Not super overall flavorful and powerful, but as an entry whiskey, something I would give to a lot of people. Where I'd compare to not necessarily flavor profile wise, but kind of like a Basil Hayden, where you get flavors, they're light, they're approachable, they don't hang around too long. Just a nice whiskey, a nice drinking whiskey. If you're gonna have one every day, you could see that being, I would use it as an introductory whiskey for people. Some of them can be a bit much and aggressive. That one was really nice, light and friendly. And I've talked to the distiller a few times. He has some really neat stuff that he's coming out with. He was the one who did that single malt IPA where I'll fucking hate IPA beer. I just do. Like, it's a drink and that shit gets set down. I don't like it. So I was like, I'll try it. And I had it. I was like, oh, hey, that's not bad. So like, yes, their vanilla stout that they're working on that's coming out soon. I was like, I'm coming back for that. And they do, the reason I also like them is they do a lot of they source for a lot of other people in the Midwest that do some really nice stuff. So it's almost like MGP or like what you're producing for these people and these people and these people are all really good. Yeah. So I'm like, so that they have, the capabilities there, and they're hunting. They're kind of like doing R&D on a lot of stuff. So they're hunting for like the next big thing for them. And I really dig that. And the last one, I guess I'm going to send you one of this, is the J. Henry and Sons 7-year cask strength. And that one is, in my mind, by far and away, kind of Wisconsin's best bourbon. But there's, like I said, there's not a lot of places in general that do craft distilling that have a 7-year-old bourbon. They're coming out with their 10-year-old this year, later this month. I probably will not get it, but it is one that just because it seems like it's a little allocated, or if it's going someplace, they're having like a lottery for you to buy it. And so probably not. But I do want to get a taste of it, probably at Distill America. Just February 20th in Madison, one of the best whiskey shows you can go to. It's only $60 or $80, and it is fantastic. You get food, you get everything. It's a wonderful time. But it's one of the things where, if you're talking about Texas and you're talking about Kentucky, kind of the two major contenders for bourbon, it stands up to them.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of pushes its elbow in and says, we fucking belong here too. And that's where I was like, yes, like that's the one that it's not necessarily, and it's not even like the puncher's chance. It's like, oh, I'm in the ring with you. Like you can be afraid. I can hang out with that. So like the 10-year, I'm like, oh. And that's right about where like a lot of bourbons kind of hit their edge, and then some of the stuff starts to fade off once you get past 12 and other stuff sometimes. So I'm like, it's 7-10 years kind of the sweet spot. So I'm excited about that one. We'll see if I can get it, but it's a little iffy. And on some of their 7 and 10 year, they get kind of a little Garrison-y brothers on pricing. It's a little punchy, closer up to the $100, $120, $100 range, and you're like, I don't know, but well worth it on this one. I would definitely get that one again. So we're going to be doing that on Wednesday night from 7 to 8, and then at 8 o'clock. Oh, and Ed from Rock Out Review is going to join us. Obviously, he knows Wisconsin whiskey pretty well, so we're going to bring him in on that. And then at 8 o'clock, we're going to flip back to My Whiskey Den, and we're going to do the second episode of Dungeons and Drams. We're going to only be probably an hour long, maybe a little bit longer. We're still kind of testing out the waters on that, but we're thinking about kind of kicking each episode around to the channel, different channels, kind of bringing it around. But we're going to be doing that then. So Wednesday night's the next big exciting night before Thanksgiving week. So, Mike, I can't appreciate how much all the different stuff you sent me. What I've tried so far has all been wonderful. Oh, just so everyone else out there, he sent me a 1960s George Dickel. It was fantastic. The leathery note on that is so up my wheelhouse. I haven't even had George Dickel just because there's so much whiskey out there to try. But I'm afraid to go to it now because I think I've been ruined.
It's just not the same.
That's my fear. It's just nowhere going to be the same. And that thing was, I'm going to go back and whoever the distiller was, with that other thing, just follow what they did. Whatever those guys did, just go back and do what it was, because it was fantastic.
Yeah.
So,
I wish they could. I mean, and I think automation and consistency and stuff, that has a lot to do with it, but man, that old stuff is so good.
That's where you hope they pull a Jameson thing where they're like, well, we have our mass production line, but then over here we have this building that's our cool mini craft stuff going on.
Yeah.
Please do that. Please do that, George Dickel.
Yeah.
Because it was fantastic.
Yeah, Benjamin's right. And you say that, and I'm down to about an ounce of that stuff left. And yeah, jokes like that go through my head every single time.
and yes, Ben, it was the best Dickel I've ever put in my mouth. You are accurate with that. But it was also the only one. But it was fantastic. So like I said, Mike, I thank you for being on the show. Everyone in the chat, Benjamin, Brad, Arthur, I'm sure there might be one or two people I'm missing right now. Thanks for showing up. I appreciate that. And we look forward to seeing you guys on Wednesday night.
All
right. And remember, from my den to yours, it's not the size of the den that matters. It's the love of the whiskey. Cheers.
Cheers.